I want to go over the most common question you're likely going to get if you're a full stack JavaScript developer. If you are doing web development or you're applying for companies outside of really, really big tech, you're likely going to get this particular interview question that I'm going to go over here and do this live in front of you. Now, I recently just got off the interview circuit. I did, I don't know, maybe between like 6 and 10 interviews in the last 12 months. I've interviewed probably 50 people over the last 10 years, at least. I've probably done about 100 interviews, and I've also helped another 100 or so people pass interviews as well. I say all that to say this. There is a big disconnect between like what you're actually going to get in an interview versus what you see on YouTube, because YouTube is littered with people that have gone to exclusively really big tech companies. And I get it. They're fun to watch. The salaries are outrageous. The problems like LeetCode seem impossible to figure out. And so people study data structures and algorithms at the expense of doing the stuff which I'm going to show you here, which is much more likely to appear in an interview. Now, I've got this question or some form of this question so many times now that I can't even count. And the majority of people that I've helped pass interviews, mid-level, junior, they're going to get some type of interview question just like this. This is a React question, most common one. Let's get right into it. And I'm going to talk through how I approach this. And if you can't do this challenge without the use of AI or cursor or whatever, then you're likely not going to pass your interviews. So, this could be a signal to you to get better at this kind of thing. And at the very least, just practice doing this, put yourself on camera explaining it and see, hey, would you hire you in this case? So here's is the interview question. It always goes something like this. I want you to fetch some data from an API and display that data on the screen. That is step one. Step two is usually some sort of manipulation of that data, like either making it disappear from the screen or making another API request based on that data, something where you're going to interact with the data that you first get back. So let's go over this. I'm using it Next.js app. I'm using Code Sandbox. I'm not using any AI at all. I'm just going to do this straight up live, and you can see me bumble around with the code. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to basically just get rid of all this stuff in this Next.js one. And now I'm using Next.js, and this has also been much more common in my interviews than it used to be, when now it's like, hey, we want you to use Next.js, not just use React. Sometimes they give you a choice, sometimes they don't. But lately, I've seen a lot more emphasis on can you use Next.js? Next.js has some quirks and some interesting things that may not be immediately clear to you if you're used to using Create React App. But wait, why the hell are you using Create React App? Stop doing that. That's weird to do nowadays. Use Next or Beat or Remix or whatever. Just use Next. Let's be honest here. Next already won the framework war here. Anyway, we have an API here. Let's check it out. And this is a to-do API. So this gives you back a bunch of objects which have a user, ID, a title, and whether or not it's been completed. So what we're going to do, part of this challenge is going to be to fetch the data and then display it on the screen and have a little checkbox for whether or not it was completed. So one of the things I like to do is write out. So we're going to fetch the data and display the task and then a checkbox for completed or not. Now, I like to get right into the code because you don't want to spend too much time. Remember, this is like a timed exercise. Almost certainly when you're doing this, you're in front of people. So you want to maybe write out and make sure you understand what you're doing. Say, okay, I'm going to do this. You kind of get some buy-in on your original idea and make sure that you understand what you're doing. You've looked at the data at this point and you see, okay, this is pretty simple. IDs, titles, and completed. The only thing we really care about are the title and the completed. So looks fairly simple, I guess. Why not? Let's do it. This is next. So we're going to have to make this use client because we're going to do some client side stuff. And I always talk through this stuff when I'm doing it. I explain every single thing I'm doing. Even if I know the interviewer may be more senior than me and maybe knows more than me, I'm still going to explain because I want this to establish some sort of trust and connection while I'm doing this. And also it's weird if you just sit there and code silently. So we're going to do a use effect. And I can already hear people saying, use effect, why would you do that? Why don't you just use React Query or whatever? Because this is a interview. We're not going to just start using stuff that we don't have. We're not going to ask the interviewer if we can begin importing libraries. So we're going to import use effect from React. Okay. Okay, cool. We have use effect, and in the use effect, we're going to do window.fetch. In fact, we can just write fetch. I don't think we need to write window. We can write fetch, and we can write the API URL, which I've having this constant variable up here. We're going to do fetch.then, and then we're going to get the response. We're going to turn response to JSON, and then we're going to get the data from that response. And before we do anything else, we're just going to console log the data. That's it. We're not going to do anything else because I want to see what this actually looks like. And then we're going to return, I don't know, a div and another div. And inside here, we're going to have like an H1 and put to-dos. Lovely, right? Lovely. Now, we don't see anything in our console here. Why is that? Because this is a client-side component. And so let me try to see if Code Sandbox can actually show us what's going on here. The network tab, and can I refresh this? Let me save it, and okay, cool. Not bad, not bad. Let's look in our console here. And look, we have a 200 response, and we have a bunch of objects. And what I want to do is see what these objects look like because, okay, I'm just going to assume that these objects look like this. I can't exactly see them here. This is often a problem when you're using a tool like Code Sandbox or whatever other tool they provide you during the interview. It's just not representative of the environment that you're usually used to using, which is like Cursor or whatever. So we're just going to, in the interest of time, say, okay, cool. Title and completed are the things we want out of here. But first, let's store this in some state. So let's make a piece of local state here, const to-dos, and set to-dos equals use state. And we're going to initialize use state to an empty array. And we're also going to import it so we can actually use it. Okay, cool. We're going to initialize it to an empty array. Why an empty array? Well, because we're going to do something with this data. We're going to want to what? We're going to display it on the screen. We're going to iterate over it. We're going to loop over it and show it here. This should all be kind of second nature to you. And if this is not, it's not like a dig on you or to say that you're not good at what you do. It's just a reminder that you're going to be expected to do this in an interview. I don't care what you've heard online. If you're in the United States, you're a full stack developer, you're doing anything on the web, you're going to get some interview like this, guaranteed. They might not all be like this, but I guarantee you will hit one like this if you're interviewing at the rate you should be interviewing at. So we're going to get our to-dos, and we're going to map over them. And we're going to put, okay, and we have one to-do, and we're going to map over it. We're going to do an implicit return. We're not going to write, I don't like doing this. I don't like doing return like that. I'd rather just do this. I'd rather just do, wrap this like this, and I'll put this in some angle brackets here. Because, I don't know. I mean, I could put them in a div if I wanted to. I don't know. Yeah, you know what? Maybe I will put these in a div so I can make them look decent later. And I'll put this in a div here. And I will put my to-do. So we'll put like a p tag. I don't know. And we'll put to-do dot, I think this is title. Okay, to-do dot title. So that looks like something we want to do. To-do dot title. And then okay, let's take a look at this. Okay, nothing's happening, and that's because why is nothing happening? We didn't set our to-dos. We need to set our to-dos to the data, and what do you know? Let's see if this works. Come on, man. Come on, please. Please work. This is working. I like to check every step of what I do, by the way, also to make sure I haven't gone too far down the road of like, hey, is this going to work? Is this not? If you write too much code and you don't see if it actually works, it could get you in a little bit of trouble. Also, because this is, okay, okay, cool. So this looks like something. It looks really ugly. And I see there's one issue. And what is the issue? The issue is likely that I don't have a key. Just guessing. Oh yeah, look at that. Each child in a list should have a unique key prop. This is a chance for you to explain why you need to have that key prop. So a key, it helps React know how to render your components smartly. It looks at them and says, hey, what's changed? Oh, this particular thing has changed. Well, I'll make a smart update to update this particular piece of the UI. This is a great chance for you to explain like why you're doing stuff you're doing or what errors are. It just shows that you have beyond your normal knowledge, beyond like your really typical knowledge of React, beyond the surface level knowledge. So we'll do the to-do.id. The ID seems like a unique identifier we can use. And this is using TypeScript, by the way, and I am not using TypeScript for the purposes of this video because I assume that maybe if you're watching this, you may be a little earlier on in your career. Maybe you're really junior. And I think using TypeScript may cause more confusion. than anything. But if you are a little more seasoned, or if you just want to learn more TypeScript, I would redo this whole exercise using TypeScript and try to do it without the use of AI tools because this is fairly simple. So we have this. Now this is almost okay, right? So, but we're missing a piece of this where we need to have the checkbox for whether it's been completed or not. So right here, I'm going to make an input, and I'm going to make type equals checkbox, and I'm going to make checked equals, and I know this from just, from doing lots of web dev front end stuff, that I know that a checkbox has this checked attribute on it, and this checked attribute would be to do dot completed, I think is the name. Oh wow, how did it know that? And it's right, completed. Okay. Oops, no, don't do that. Let's get out of here. Look at that. Now, this is where the interview gets maybe more interesting, right? Where they say, "Okay, cool. You've got down the really simple piece of it, and you've flown past it. You've just been flying past the simple piece of this exercise. Now, what if we wanted to be able to check and uncheck our to-dos? What then? Because you can't." And you may be thinking, "Wait, what?" And if that surprises you that you can't check and uncheck the to-dos, again, a reminder that maybe you wanna update your knowledge of React a little bit to understand why. The checked attribute is set to the current to-do and whether it's completed or not, whether that's true or false. Clicking on it doesn't do anything. It doesn't change this to true or false. If this is true or false, then it's true or false. There's no way to change it yet. This is where you need to come in and create a function that will take place, that will be triggered when a person, I don't know, clicks on this, right? So we need to have some way to change this. So on change, I think it is, we'll do on change, toggle to do. We'll toggle to do, and we will pass in the ID. I think that seems like a reasonable way to do this. We'll pass in the to do.id. What are we doing here? What's going on here? We want to change, we want to update the state of that particular to do to be true or false. If it was true, it'll be false. If it was false, it'll be true, right? When you click on this, when you on change is basically when you click on this little box here. Um, Now this is undefined. So we need to define this. You can do const, you can do function. I'll just write function, function toggle to do. Okay. And we'll take in the ID of the one we have. And what do we need to do here? We need to find the to do, and then we need to update it, and then we need to, well, God dang it, whatever, update input, and then we need to set the state to reflect the new state. Because how does React know when to change? How does it know, like, oh, hey, something's different here? Well, you need to update the state. That's how you change stuff. So first, we need to find the to do, right? And I think there's a few ways to do this. You could use find, you could use a filter, maybe you could use a map. And what I think is the most simple approach is to use a map. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our to dos dot map, and we're going to look at every to do, and we're going to do something. Is this the to do we care about? Is it not? If it's the one we care about, so let's see. So we can do this. If to do dot ID equals the ID, then we care about it. And what do? Then we do to do dot completed equals the opposite, equals to do dot completed. Now I'm actually a little I don't like this approach, to be honest. This is mutating some stuff, which not really a huge fan of here, but it's okay. We can come back and fix this. This is another thing during an interview. You don't want to get too stuck on the perfect answer. You can even make a note, like saying, let's not mutate state. Or will this work? Will this work? I'm a little to do completed equals the opposite of to do completed. So if it was false, it'll be true. If it was true, it'll be false. I kind of like this. It's okay. Sure. And if it's not, then what? Then do nothing. Uh, Return the to do because this is a map. So we'll just say, okay, well, if there's one we care about, we flip the completed property, and this is a map. So what it does is return the new to dos. It returns an array of all these to dos. So const updated to dos equals to do.map. Still not a big fan of how we're doing this, and there's ways to clean this up. Absolutely. So now we're going to update. So we updated the input, and now we're going to set the state. So now we do set to dos to the updated to dos. Okay. Will this work? Hey, what do you know? It does kind of work. And maybe they're going to say, yeah, this is fine. This is actually fine. But you could also go back and say, well, we're in a map here. So what we could do instead is return a copy of the to-dos. We could destructure it if we want to make it a little cleaner. And we could do completed is what's it called? To do dot ID equals ID. Well, then we do the opposite of to do dot completed. Else to do dot completed. This is just me being a little fancy. I mean, I don't think we need to do all this, but I think this is maybe a better way of doing this. This is a way of not mutating the state. So, and then we could even do this. We don't we could just set to dos, blah 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 blah, and we could do that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And blah, blah, blah. What is wrong here? What does it say? Will this work still? Oh, look at that. Set to dos dot map return. Oh, to do. Oh, geez, what the? Oh, that was a dangerous one, right? Okay, come on back. Let's see what's going on here. Will this work? Okay, not too bad. This is working. This is working fine. We see ones we can undo them, redo them, and there's all sorts of optimizations. And I'm sure people watching this think, "Well, I would have done this. You could have done, this much better." That's fine. The more important thing, in my opinion, from doing so many of these types of interviews is working through the problem, talking about what you're doing, and then showing some expertise, some knowledge outside of the most basic fundamental stuff. So when you're doing this, I think it's important to say, well, here's why I'm doing this like this. Here's why I'm using use client. Here's why I'm using use effect here. Here's why I'm using use state. Here's ways we could probably improve this. I'm not really a big fan of my approach here, but I think it's going to get us at least to a working solution. So talk through the thing, because if interviewers are just hiring based on code completeness and like hiring people that could just blaze through this the fastest, then competitive programmers would essentially destroy us all and we wouldn't really be able to compete. The reality is that your job as a coder, professional software developer, is much more than just dumping out code. It's being able to explain it, because that's a lot of what we do. Now, last thing I'm going to do in here, if I really wanted to impress my interviewer, to be honest, I might even do this. I might do like toggle to do dot bind null and then to do dot ID. I like to do things that give me a little bit of a chance to explain some JavaScript knowledge that I have. And I'm thinking, in this case, we could either have an anonymous function that then calls toggle to do, or instead we could do here is create a function with we don't care about binding the context, but it will have the first parameter bound to the to do.id. So this is one way to get away from an anonymous function. And they say, well, why would you want to do that? And it's not really a great reason for it. But I think this is cool because it shows off that like how bind works. And let me see if I actually do, because maybe this is wrong. Oh, it's right. Look at that. Look at me. So using something like bind here is another way to approach this. And I forget actually if this is more memory efficient or less, I also just highly doubt it matters. React is not so like unperformant or so finicky that you would really need to make these super micro optimizations in your code to make sure that like a function doesn't take up more memory or whatever, or get reallocated every single time it renders. But in this case, I think that this is just a fun way to do it and show off that, hey, I also know what bind is, what it does, how to use it practically in this case. And now we've passed our interview, hopefully, and got on to the next round where maybe we'll do system design or something else like that. I really hope that's helpful. And I will also leave a link to this code sandbox so you can try it out yourself. And what I would do is redo this whole thing using TypeScript and maybe add another little task, which is to maybe disappear things when they've been checked off. Maybe when you check things off, why are they still there? What if you just got it off the screen? Wouldn't that be cool? So I think that would be a really cool thing to figure out how to do. Once you check something off, it disappears from the screen. Anyway, hope that's helpful. See you around. And if you need help on your interviews, then I don't know, don't hit me up, but good luck on those. If you need help learning how to code, getting a career as a software developer, learning how to code and actually getting into a job, and you also need interview prep, which is something we help do, then go to parsity.io. See ya.